At 19 years old, Cora Bellamy learned how quickly a life can be emptied. The sound came first. A diesel engine rattling outside the apartment window. A flatbed trailer backing into the parking lot. Tires grinding over loose gravel. Metal chains clinking against the trailer bed. Her father, Thomas Bellamy, had been dead for 3 weeks. He was 52 when his heart gave out on a job site in Cary, North Carolina. He had been carrying drywall up a flight of stairs when his left arm went numb. Men like Thomas often worked through pain. They worked through bad knees, bad backs, bad weather, and bad news. Stopping was expensive, so pain became something to ignore. The paramedics said it was fast. Cora never knew what she was supposed to do with that. People said it like speed made grief smaller. It did not. The funeral had been small. 11 people. A pastor who mispronounced Thomas's middle name. A few neighbors. A few men who had once worked beside him. Dale Bellamy, Thomas's brother, stood in the back of the church with his arms crossed, 20 minutes late, as if even grief was something he refused to arrive for on time. Cora sat in the front pew in a borrowed black dress and tried to remember the last thing her father had said to her. It was probably something about the truck needing an oil change. Or whether she had eaten something ordinary. That was the cruelty of it. The last words of a good man are often ordinary because no one knows they are the last. Cora had already lost one parent before Thomas died. Her mother, Eleanor, left when Cora was 3, and Thomas never gave her a clean answer why. When Cora was little, she asked where her mother had gone. Thomas would look at the floor, then find something in the room that needed fixing. A loose hinge. A dripping faucet. A chair leg that wobbled. By the time Cora was old enough to know silence meant pain, she had stopped asking. After Thomas died, that silence became the only family history she had left. 3 weeks later, Dale came back. Cora opened the door before he knocked. "What are you doing here?" Dale walked past her, into the apartment, straight toward the back room where Thomas kept his tools. "Your daddy owed me $4,000, he said. I'm collecting." Thomas had been many things. Quiet. Proud. Tired. Careful with money because there was never enough of it. He was not a man who hid debts from his daughter. Not debts like that. "He never mentioned owing you anything," Cora said. "Well, he did." Dale did not look at her when he said it. He started with the rolling toolbox. After that came the Milwaukee drill set. The table saw. The welding rig Thomas had saved 2 years to buy. To some people, tools are only tools. Metal, batteries, cords, handles, blades. Things you can price, pawn, replace. To a working man, tools are a history of survival. Every scratch has a job behind it. Every dent has a week of rent behind it. A saw can be the thing that keeps the lights on another month. Cora watched Dale will her father's life out of the apartment one load at a time. When she tried to argue, he asked if she had papers proving he was lying. She did not. Grief had not taught her probate law. Poverty had not given her a lawyer. At 19, she knew how to change a tire, how to cut a straight line with a circular saw, how to smile at customers at the Shell station when her feet hurt. She did not know how to stop a grown man with a trailer who had decided no one would stop him. Dale took the truck keys from the hook by the door. He took the kitchen table too. He said he had built it 15 years ago and was taking back what was his. By the time he finished, the apartment felt hollow. Bare walls. Empty corners. Dust marks where things had been. It looked less like a home than the evidence of one. On his last trip out, Dale paused by the bookshelf. A worn leather Bible sat between a stack of utility bills and a chipped coffee mug. Thomas had kept it there for as long as Cora could remember. Dale glanced at it. "You can keep your daddy's church stuff," he said. He left. The trailer rolled out of the lot. The diesel sound faded. Cora sat on the floor of the apartment her father had paid for, in a room her uncle had stripped, with $47 to her name. No truck. No tools. No savings. No family willing to answer the phone. The landlord had given her 30 days. Not 30 days to grieve. 30 days to disappear from a lease that no longer had her father's name alive behind it. That night, after midnight, Cora got up from the floor. She made instant coffee with water heated in the microwave because Dale had taken the kettle too. She sat at the narrow strip of laminate that passed for a counter and pulled the Bible toward her. She was not religious. Thomas had not been either, not in any obvious way. He did not quote scripture. He did not make a show of prayer. Still, Cora had seen him open that Bible late at night. He would sit at the kitchen table after a long day, his hands still rough with dust and glue, and turn the thin pages slowly, as if he was looking for something specific. She had never asked what. Now she opened it. The spine cracked softly. The pages were thin, almost translucent, their edges worn soft from years of handling. Between Psalms and Proverbs, something caught. A piece of paper. Folded twice. Cora almost missed it. It had been tucked so neatly into the pages that it blended with them. She unfolded it carefully. It was a deed. Stamped by the county clerk's office. Dated 7 years earlier. 2 acres. Lot 14. Miller Creek Road. The name on it was Thomas James Bellamy. The purchase price was $340. Cora read it once. Again. A third time, slower. Her father had owned land. Behind the deed was another sheet of paper. A hand-drawn map. Thomas's handwriting was unmistakable. Block letters, all capitals, the same way he wrote grocery lists, birthday cards, and measurements on scrap lumber. Garner to Durham. Durham North. A small town circled twice, Ridley. A road marked east. Miller Creek Road. At the end of it, a small X. Lot 14. Cora sat with the paper in her hands until the coffee went cold. The paper did not solve the 30 days. It only gave her a direction before the clock ran out. For 7 years, every Saturday morning, Thomas had kissed her forehead and told her he was picking up side work. Every Saturday evening, he came home tired, with sawdust in his hair and that smell on his jacket. Old Spice, pine, sweat, and cut lumber. She had thought he was hanging cabinets. Reframing garages. Repairing decks. Doing what he always did. The deed said something else. The map said something else. Her father had not just been working. He had been going somewhere. The next morning, Cora packed a backpack. A change of clothes. The deed. The map. The Bible. A phone charger. The $47, reduced by the cost of getting out there. The bus ride did not feel like the beginning of a miracle. It felt like logistics. A ticket. A transfer. A county connector that dropped her at a gas station outside Ridley a little after noon. Ridley was the kind of town that did not need to introduce itself. One main street. A hardware store. A diner. A Baptist church. A post office. A few pickups parked at angles that suggested their owners had been parking that way for 30 years and saw no reason to stop. Places like that notice strangers. Cora chose the hardware store because it had an open sign, and because hardware stores had been the closest thing to a second language between her and her father. Inside, it smelled like fertilizer, dust, oil, and cut wood. A man behind the counter looked up from a newspaper. He was in his 60s, with thick forearms and reading glasses pushed onto his forehead. His apron said Glenn. "Help you find something?" Cora took out the map. "I'm looking for Miller Creek Road." The man looked at the map, then at her face. Something changed. Recognition. "You Thomas's girl?" Cora felt the question land in her stomach. Her father had been dead 3 weeks, and here was a man in a town she had never visited, asking if she belonged to him. "You knew my father?" Glenn folded his newspaper with careful hands. "Knew him 7 years," he said. "Came in every Saturday morning like clockwork." Every Saturday. There it was again. The shape of the secret. Glenn took off his glasses. "I heard he passed." "I'm real sorry." Cora nodded because she had learned that was what people expected. Nodding was easier than answering. "I found a deed," she said. "For land on Miller Creek Road. I didn't know he owned anything." Glenn was quiet for a moment. It was not the silence of a man hearing news. It was the silence of a man deciding how much of the truth belonged to him. Finally he pointed toward the road beyond town. "Miller Creek is about 4 miles east. Take this road past the church, left at the fork. Gravel road runs about 2 miles. Lot 14 is on the right. You'll see a break in the tree line." Cora waited. "What's there?" Glenn looked at her for a long time. "I think you ought to go see for yourself." If nothing was there, Glenn would have said so. If it was just land, he would have told her. Instead, he sent her walking. For miles in sneakers that were already wearing thin. Early April in North Carolina has a way of looking gentle while still making you sweat. Dogwoods bloomed along the roadside. Cars passed now and then, slowing slightly when they saw her. Cora kept walking. Past the church. Left at the fork. Onto the gravel road, where the trees pressed close on both sides and the world grew quieter. There were only 2 mailboxes along the road. Both rusted. Both guarding lots that looked abandoned. At last, she saw it. A break in the tree line. A dirt path, just wide enough for a truck. The tire tracks were worn deep from years of use, but grass had begun growing through them. 3 weeks was enough time for nature to start taking back what grief had interrupted. Cora turned onto the path. It curved through pines for maybe 100 yards. The trees opened. In the center of the clearing, set slightly up on a rise, was a house. Not a ruin. Not a shack. A house. Small. Unfinished. But real. The frame was solid. The roof was complete, dark shingles in straight clean lines. 3 sides were still sheathed in plywood, but one side had clapboard siding painted a pale blue. The front porch was framed out with raw 2x6s, but there were no steps and no railing. It hung 3 feet above the ground like a sentence waiting to be finished. For a long moment, Cora did not move. This was not an errand. This was not a secret hobby. This was a house built by a man who had been too tired to speak much at dinner, but not too tired to drive 40 miles on Saturdays and build a future board by board. The front door was only a sheet of plywood with a padlock. Locked. Cora moved around the side through knee-high grass, past a stack of lumber covered with a tarp, past a wheelbarrow turned upside down. At the back, one window had no glass yet, only plastic sheeting stapled across the frame. She peeled it back and looked inside. One room was finished. Completely finished. Drywall painted soft white. A wood floor sanded smooth. A window on the east wall, with actual glass, looking out toward the place where morning light would enter first. A cot stood against the wall with a folded wool blanket on it. A plastic bin sat nearby with a camp stove, a lantern, a few cans, matches, and a jar of peanut butter. Her father had slept here. Over and over, for years. Every Saturday night he had slept in this room, in a house no one in her life knew existed. Cora climbed through the window. The room smelled like sawdust and pine. Faintly, almost impossibly, it smelled like Thomas's jacket. Old Spice and lumber. Paper could be misunderstood. A house could be explained. That smell belonged to her childhood. It belonged to the man who used to come home exhausted, wash his hands at the kitchen sink, and ask if she had eaten before he asked anything else. Under the cot, she saw the edge of something. A notebook. Spiral bound. stained with paint and coffee rings. The kind Thomas used for job measurements. She knelt and pulled it out. On the first page, in her father's block letters, were 4 words and a date. Cora's house started April 2019. Cora sat down on the cot. She turned the page. Measurements. Costs. Cedar siding, $87. Roofing nails, $12. East bedroom window, used, $41. Every figure was written carefully. Every dollar accounted for. This was how Thomas had always lived. Not cheap because he was small, but careful because care was the only way to stretch a life that never had enough margin. Between the building notes, she found sentences that were not about lumber. Page 4. Cora's room. East window so she gets morning light. She always said she wanted to wake up with the sun. Page 11. Porch will face south. Big enough for 2 chairs. She'll want a dog someday. Page 19. Kitchen small, but she doesn't need big. She needs hers. Cora read that line again. She needs hers. A place no landlord could take in 30 days. A place no uncle could load onto a trailer. A place not borrowed from someone else's tolerance. A place that had been measured, cut, sanded, wired, and saved for her. Cora kept reading until the light in the east window changed from gold to orange. She had no flashlight. Her phone battery was low. She should have been afraid of the woods, the dark, the isolation. Fear had competition now. There was shock. There was grief. Under both, there was a small, impossible warmth. Her father had seen her. He had seen the height of a shelf. The direction of morning light. The color she liked. The fact that someday she might want a dog. He had seen her so clearly that he built around it. The last entry in the notebook was dated 2 weeks before he died. Almost done. Give it to her on her 21st. She'll fight me on it. She'll say it's too much. But she needs to know. She needs to know I saw her every day. I saw her. There was nothing in the notebook about Eleanor. Not one line. For a man who recorded $12 roofing nails, that silence felt deliberate. Cora closed the notebook and held it against her chest. Outside, something moved in the grass. A soft sound. Careful feet. A dog stood at the window. Medium-sized. Brown and white. One ear torn. Ribs showing through matted fur. It watched her with dark, cautious eyes. Cora did not move. The dog did not run. After a while, it climbed through the open window as if it knew the way. It walked 3 slow circles in the corner of the room, then lay down. Cora looked at the dog. The dog looked back. You knew him too, she said. The dog rested its head on its paws. Outside, the clearing darkened. Stars appeared through the trees, more stars than Cora had ever seen from the apartment in Garner. The silence was still heavy, but different now. Not empty. Not entirely. Cora pulled the wool blanket around her shoulders. It smelled like her father. She had $47 minus bus fare, no truck, no tools, no plan that made sense on paper, and a house that was not finished. For the first time since Thomas Bellamy died, the story had changed direction. She had not found money. She had not found an easy rescue. She had found work. She had found proof. In the dark room her father had built with his own hands, Cora Bellamy made the first decision that was fully hers. She would not let Dale be the end of what Thomas left behind. She would finish the house. Morning entered through the east window before Cora understood where she was. The wool blanket was around her shoulders. Sawdust was in the air. The notebook rested beside her. The dog was gone when she sat up. Daylight made the room look less like a dream and more like work. In one corner, Thomas had left 3 cans of beans, a box of matches, a jug of water, and a jar of peanut butter with the lid screwed down tight. Emergency supplies. That was how Cora knew her father had thought past the gift. He had imagined trouble. He had imagined someone arriving here with nothing. Because Thomas Bellamy had spent his life preparing for bills, broken pipes, late checks, and bad luck, he had prepared for that too. Cora ate peanut butter off her fingers and drank from the jug. After that, she walked through the rest of the structure. 2 bedrooms. One finished, one framed with insulation showing between the studs. A bathroom roughed in, PVC pipe stubbed through the subfloor, a toilet sitting unconnected like a promise not yet kept. A kitchen with hand-built pine cabinets, sanded and sealed but not painted. Pencil marks on the counter supports where Thomas had planned the next cuts. The wiring had been run neatly. Cables clipped to studs at even intervals. Junction boxes labeled in block letters. Thomas had always been particular about electrical work. He used to say the things people could not see were the things they trusted most. She found the breaker panel near the back wall. When she flipped one switch, a bulb flickered to life in the kitchen. It was weak light, bare and practical. It worked. At the sink, she turned the faucet. The pipe coughed. Brown water sputtered out for 10 seconds, then ran clear. Cora stood there with both hands on the counter, watching water move through a house that was not supposed to exist. Water changes the mind. Water says maybe. Maybe this can be lived in. Maybe this can become real. Outside, she found the dog near the lumber stack. He sat far enough away to leave if he wanted, close enough to make it clear he had not left. "You hungry?" she asked. His ears moved. She brought out beans on a plastic plate and set it down several feet from him. He waited until she backed away, then ate fast, the way hungry animals eat when they do not trust the next meal. When he finished, he looked at her. "All right," she said. "You can stay." A truck came up the gravel. An old green pickup stopped at the edge of the clearing. A woman got out. She was in her 70s, small, with short silver hair, a flannel shirt tucked into jeans, and boots that had seen more mud than most people's tires. She studied the house for a moment. "Well," she said, "I was wondering when you'd show up." Cora stiffened. "Who are you?" "Hazel Purcell. I live 2 miles that way." She pointed east. "I've been watching this place since your daddy stopped coming. Figured something was wrong." Glenn called. Cora did not know what to do with the information that people here had known her father. Not just met him. Known him. "You knew what he was doing?" Hazel looked at the house, and her face softened. "I knew he was building. Took him a while to admit why." "And why was that?" "He was building a house for his daughter." The words were simple. That made them harder to hear. Hazel did not rush in. She did not hug Cora. She did not fill the moment with comfort Cora had not asked for. She only said, "Come on. You need breakfast. Real breakfast. Not whatever he left in those cans." Hazel's farmhouse sat off the gravel road, white clapboard, porch wrapping around 3 sides. Her kitchen smelled like coffee, bacon, and something warm from the oven. She put a plate in front of Cora without asking what she wanted. Eggs. Toast. 2 strips of bacon. Orange juice in a glass with a chip near the rim. Cora ate like someone who had forgotten hunger could be answered. Hazel sat across from her with coffee. "Your daddy bought that land at a county tax auction," she said. "Previous owner died. No heirs. Taxes went unpaid. County wanted it off the books. It was listed as a hunting parcel with a condemned cabin. The cabin? Rotted through. Thomas tore it down and built on the old footprint. He never told me." "No," Hazel said. "He wouldn't have. Your daddy was proud, but not in the way people usually mean it. He didn't want applause for doing what he thought a father was supposed to do." Hazel mentioned Cora's mother only once, and even then carefully, as if the name had edges. Eleanor knew he was stubborn, she said. Cora looked up. You knew my mother? Only enough to know your daddy never stopped carrying that story. Hazel did not say more. That silence stayed in the room with them. After breakfast, Hazel drove her back to lot 14 and walked through the house with her. The roof was good. The well pump had been installed the previous summer. The electrical looked clean, though it needed checking before anyone called it finished. The plumbing was halfway there. The bathroom needed connecting. The water heater was missing. The second bedroom needed drywall. The porch needed railing and steps. That sounds like a lot, Cora said. It is, Hazel answered. But it isn't framing a house from the ground up. Your daddy did the heavy part. The hard part was done. The rest was still hard. That afternoon, Cora walked back into Ridley. For miles. She was going to learn that road by the pressure points in her feet. Glenn was behind the counter when she entered the hardware store. He looked up, and something like relief crossed his face. You found it. I found it. He pulled a stool from behind the counter. Sit down. He poured coffee from a thermos into a paper cup and handed it to her. From under the counter, he brought out a manila folder. Your daddy asked me to hold a copy of this, he said. It doesn't settle everything by itself. You'll still have to take it to the clerk's office and get the estate handled right. But it tells you what he wanted before anybody else tries telling you different. Inside was a handwritten statement in Thomas's block letters, prepared and notarized months before he died. Everything he owned, including the property at lot 14 Miller Creek Road, was to go to Cora and Bellamy. There were witness signatures below it. Glenn's. His wife Patricia's. Cora held the paper carefully. Her father's handwriting looked the same here as it did in the notebook. Straight. Plain. Unromantic. Certain. He knew Dale would come, Glenn said. He did come. Glenn did not ask what happened. His jaw told her he understood enough. He took the tools, she said. The truck. The table. Everything except the Bible. Glenn looked down at the folder. Then he missed the only thing that mattered. But listen to me, Cora. Paper only protects you if you use it. Tomorrow morning, we start with the county records. The next morning, Glenn drove her to the county office. That was where Cora learned the difference between finding a house and being allowed to keep one. The deed was real. The will was real. Real did not mean finished. Thomas's name was still on the land. His estate had to be opened. The truck and tools Dale had taken were supposed to be listed, not quietly hauled away. The house needed to be checked before anyone would call it safe to live in. The county needed forms, signatures, waiting periods, and proof. Grief did not move paperwork faster. The clerk slid papers across the counter. Cora walked out holding a stack thicker than the deed itself. Glenn stood beside her on the courthouse steps. This is how you keep it, he said. Cora looked back at the doors. For the first time, she understood that Dale was not the only thing she had to survive. The system itself could wear a person down if she did not know how to move through it. Still, she had a folder. She had a name on a will. She had people who knew what Thomas had meant. She had 30 days. I want to finish the house, she told Glenn. You know how? My dad taught me some. Framing. Basic wiring. How to use a saw. I'm not him. No one is. I can learn the rest. You have money for materials? Cora almost smiled at the absurdity of the question. I have $47. Less now. Glenn leaned back. He looked toward the aisles of lumber, screws, pipe fittings, and paint. I could use help mornings. 7 to noon. Stocking. Deliveries. Counter work once you know where things are. Pays $12 an hour. Cora said nothing. Materials at cost, Glenn added. Not charity. Employee price. Why would you do that? Because your daddy spent 7 years in this store buying nails and lumber and never once asked me to cut the price. When I tried, he said he wanted to earn it. Glenn took off his glasses and cleaned them on his shirt. Least I can do is make sure his daughter gets the same chance. On Monday morning, Cora was standing outside the hardware store at 6:50. Glenn unlocked the door at 7 sharp and said, "Coffee's in the back." That was the whole ceremony. The work was simple and physical. She unloaded pallets of 2x4s. Sorted bins of screws. Learned where the PVC fittings were, where the finished nails lived, which drawer held the odd hinges nobody bought until someone needed one more than anything in the world. Mornings belonged to Glenn. Afternoons belonged to the house. The first battle was the bathroom. Thomas had run the pipes and set the toilet flange, but the connections were unfinished. Cora watched videos on her phone until the battery dipped into red. She borrowed a pipe wrench from Glenn and spent 4 hours under the subfloor, primer fumes sharp in her nose, trying to make PVC joints line up the way the men in the videos made it look easy. She got it wrong twice. The first joint leaked. She cut it out and did it again. The second time, she glued a fitting backward and had to saw through the pipe before the cement fully cured. By the third try, her hands were sticky, her shoulders ached, and her patience had been worn down to something close to anger. The toilet flushed. Water moved where it was supposed to move. Cora sat on the bathroom floor and laughed. The dog, watching from the doorway, tilted his head as if she had lost her mind. "Running water," she told him. "That's not nothing." His name, Hazel told her later, was Scout. Thomas had named him 2 years earlier, after the dog showed up half-starved at the edge of the clearing. Thomas started leaving food every Saturday. Built him a lean-to out of scrap plywood near the tree line. "Your daddy said he was the best assistant he ever had," Hazel said. Carried screws in his mouth. After that, Cora stopped calling him the dog. Scout went where she went. He waited outside the hardware store in the mornings and slept at the foot of the cot at night. The water heater came from Hazel's garage. Thomas's notebook had mentioned it on page 7. A 40-gallon gas unit that had belonged to Hazel's late husband, Franklin. Thomas had planned to trade labor for it by fixing Hazel's porch railing. He never got the chance. "I'll fix your railing," Cora said. Hazel nodded. "I know." Installing the water heater took 3 days and more caution than confidence. The gas line scared her more than the pipes. A bad PVC joint could leak. A bad gas connection could kill. Glenn talked her through the fitting over the phone and made her test it with soapy water again and again before anyone touched the pilot light. Ray Caldwell, a plumber Glenn trusted, checked it the next morning. Only then did Cora let herself believe the shower was safe. The first hot shower Cora took in that house was not beautiful in any conventional sense. The bathroom still had exposed studs. The curtain was plastic hung from wire. The floor was bare. Hot water hit her shoulders after weeks of cold well water and sink baths at Hazel's house, and Cora stood there until the water began to cool. Progress did not arrive as a grand announcement. It came in things that worked. A toilet that flushed. A faucet that cleared. A bulb that came on. A shower that warmed. Each one told her the same thing. This can be lived in. Cora began writing in the blank pages after Thomas's last entry. April 8th. Moved in. Job at Glenn's starts Monday. Scout is here. Need water heater, drywall, blue tile, porch lumber. Below it, she wrote a sentence she did not show anyone. "I'm going to finish what you started, Dad." The town began to notice. Information in small towns travels through counters, church pews, parking lots, and women standing with car doors open long after the engine is off. Ray came back to inspect every joint, every fitting, every connection. He found 2 spots where Cora's work needed reinforcement and 3 places where Thomas's original work was almost painfully neat. "Your daddy knew what he was doing," Ray said from under the sink. This is love built into copper pipe. The line embarrassed Cora. It stayed with her. A retired electrician named Don came the next week, tightened 2 connections, and replaced a breaker that was not quite right for the kitchen load. A woman from the Baptist church brought curtains with blue trim for the east window. She also brought canned food and a bag of used clothes. Cora thanked her for the curtains and left the rest in the truck. Hazel saw it happen and did not correct her in front of anyone. Later, she only said, "Help doesn't always mean pity." "Sometimes it feels the same," Cora said. Hazel nodded. "Then learn the difference. You'll need people. That doesn't make you small." That sentence did not soften Cora right away. Good advice rarely does. By late May, the kitchen had a butcher block counter set onto Thomas's pine cabinets. The bathroom floor had blue tile, not perfect, but level enough. The second bedroom had drywall, and Cora's 5th wall looked better than her first. The porch still needed steps. The front door was still plywood. The structure had changed. It was no longer a secret in the woods. It was becoming a home. That was when Dale came back. Cora heard the diesel engine before she saw the truck. She was on a ladder painting trim around the front window. The sound reached her the way certain sounds from childhood do, without asking permission. She knew that engine. It had belonged to her father. Now it belonged to the man who had taken it. Dale parked at the edge of the clearing and got out. He stood there for a moment, looking at the house. Not at Cora. At the house. The roof. The siding. The porch. The window. The land. Cora climbed down and set the brush across the paint can. "What is this?" Dale asked. "It's my house." "Your house." Thomas started it. "I'm finishing it." "On what land?" "His land. Bought and paid for." Dale walked closer. His face moved through surprise into calculation. Calculation became anger. "He never told me he owned property. He didn't tell most people. I'm his brother. I had a right to know." The words landed differently now than they would have in the apartment. Back then, Cora had been surrounded by absence. Empty corners. Missing tools. Keys gone from the hook. Here, she stood in front of something Thomas had built for her, and the ground under her feet had a deed behind it. "You had a right," she said. "You took his truck. His tools. Our kitchen table." "What right are you talking about?" Dale pointed at the house. "This is worth something." That sentence told Cora everything. He did not see the east window. He did not see the shelf at her height. He did not see 7 years of Saturdays. He saw value. Land. Structure. Something a person could divide. "Dad left it to me," she said. "Specifically. There's a will. Witnessed. Notarized. Glenn has a copy, and the estate paperwork is already started." Dale stopped. "A will?" "Yes." His eyes searched her face, then the house, then the clearing, looking for an opening. There was none. "You want to spend money fighting it, you can," Cora said. "But you won't win." The clearing went quiet. Scout moved behind her and pressed against her leg. Dale looked at the porch, still missing steps. "He should have told me," he said. His voice had changed. It was quieter now, but not soft enough to be trusted. "You took everything he had and left me with a Bible." Dale looked down. For a second, he seemed almost human in his shame. Before he got into the truck, Dale took out his phone and photographed the house, the porch, the tree line, and the lot marker near the path. He did not say why. He did not have to. At the open truck door, he looked back. "You better hope those papers are as good as Glenn says," he said. "Because if there's one loose nail in them, I'll find it." The truck disappeared down the gravel road. Cora stood in the clearing until the engine faded. Her hands were shaking. She waited for the shaking to stop before she climbed the ladder again. That evening, she walked to Hazel's house. Hazel was on the porch with iced tea and a book open in her lap. Dale came, Cora said. I heard the truck. He wanted part of the property. He won't get it. He took pictures. Hazel closed the book. Then tomorrow we make copies of everything. Cora sat on the steps. Dad knew he'd come. Your daddy knew what Dale was. What is Dale? Hazel thought about that for a moment. A man who sees opportunity before he sees people. Not evil, exactly. Just blind in a particular way. That did not excuse him. It explained why Thomas had built in secret. Why the deed had been hidden. Why the will had been prepared before death turned a brother's entitlement into a legal threat. The enemy in Cora's life was not only Dale. It was also the fragile line that working people live on. A line where one heart attack can turn tools into disputed property, a truck into leverage, and a half-built house into something someone else might try to claim before the daughter even knows it exists. Paperwork can sound boring until it is the only thing standing between a young woman and homelessness. That night, Cora returned to the house and opened the notebook. She meant to write about Dale. While turning to the next blank page, her thumb caught on something in the back cover. A pocket. Almost invisible. A slit in the cardboard. Inside was an envelope. No address. No stamp. Only one word on the front, in handwriting she did not recognize. Thomas. The writing was smaller than his. Rounder. Careful in a way that made each letter look placed rather than written. Cora held the envelope for a long time before opening it. The paper inside was thin and lined, torn from a legal pad. The letter was dated years earlier. Thomas. I know you won't write back. I know you're angry, and you have every right. But Cora deserves the truth, even if she never hears it from me. Cora stopped reading. Eleanor. Her mother's name had become a room Cora stopped entering. Eleanor had left when Cora was 3. For 15 years, Cora had carried one version of that story. Her mother walked out because she did not want to be a mother anymore. No one had corrected it. Thomas had never explained. When Cora asked as a child, he found something to fix. Eventually, she stopped asking. The letter continued in Eleanor's careful hand. She wrote that she had been diagnosed with a progressive neurological disease when Cora was still small. She wrote that she had watched her own mother decline from illness and could not bear the thought of Cora growing up beside a body slowly failing. She wrote that leaving had been wrong, but at the time she believed absence would wound less than witnessing. She wrote that anger would be easier for a child to carry than pity. Cora read the line twice. A third time. It did not make sense. It made too much sense. 15 years of anger did not vanish because a letter asked it to. Pain does not become noble just because the person who caused it suffered too. Eleanor had made a choice. It had hurt Cora. Both things could be true. At the bottom, Eleanor had written. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am asking you to understand that I loved her. Because I loved her. Not because I didn't. Cora set the letter on the cot. Her hands were steady, but something inside her had shifted so sharply she felt almost sick. There was a second envelope in the pocket. Newer paper. Same handwriting, less steady. In that letter, Eleanor wrote from a care center in Bristol, Virginia. Room 214. Her legs had failed the year before. Her right arm no longer obeyed her reliably. She had heard Cora graduated high school and cried for 2 hours. She had heard, through a relative, that Thomas was building something. She did not know what. If it's for Cora, she wrote, then you are a better parent than I ever was. She deserves a home. She deserves everything. Cora placed the second letter beside the first. 2 letters. Years apart. A mother writing into silence. A father keeping the letters. That was the part Cora could not make simple. Thomas had not thrown them away. He had not erased Eleanor completely. He had hidden the truth in the one place Cora was meant to find when she was ready. He had also let her grow up with a wound she did not understand. He had honored Eleanor's request. In doing that, he had asked his daughter to carry anger that did not fully belong to her. That did not make him cruel. It made him human. A good man can make a painful choice for a loving reason and still leave damage behind. Cora folded the letters and slid them back into the notebook pocket. Not tonight. That was all she could decide. Not tonight. Outside, wind moved through the pines. Inside, the room still smelled like sawdust and Thomas's old jacket. Now the house held another presence too. Not a ghost. A question. Cora understood that finishing the house would be easier than deciding what to do with the woman 3 hours away who had loved her badly, left her completely, and waited 15 years in silence. 3 days after Cora found the letters, another truck came up the gravel road. This engine had a sound Cora knew too well. The same diesel rattle that had once carried her father home from work. The same engine that had idled outside the apartment while Dale loaded Thomas's tools onto a trailer. Cora was sanding the porch railing when the truck appeared between the pines. She set the sandpaper down and stood still. Scout rose beside her. Dale parked at the edge of the clearing. For a full minute, he did not get out. He sat behind the wheel with both hands on it, looking through the windshield at the house. When he finally stepped down, he looked different. Thinner. Unshaven. His shirt was wrinkled in the way clothes get when a person has stopped caring how the world reads him. He walked toward the porch but stopped at the place where the steps should have been. The porch was still 3 feet off the ground, a platform without an invitation. "I'm not here about the property," he said. Cora waited. Dale looked down at the dirt, then at the raw edge of the porch framing. "Sheila left me." Cora did not answer. There are some confessions that are not owed sympathy on arrival. They have to stand in the air for a while and prove they are more than another way to ask for something. Dale put his hands in his pockets. "She said I was mean and getting meaner. Said she wasn't waiting around for it to get worse." He gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "She's not wrong." Cora sat on the porch edge, her legs hanging over the side. Dale looked at the house again. "I've been thinking about your daddy." That was the first time he had called Thomas that. Not my brother. Not Tom. Not a claim. A relationship through Cora. "I lied," he said. "About the 4,000. Cora's face did not change. "He didn't owe me. I owed him." The clearing was quiet except for a bird somewhere in the pines. 20 years, Dale said. Money. Rides. Tools. Jobs he got me onto. Times he showed up when nobody else would. Your daddy never said no to me. Not once." He swallowed. "And I never once said thank you." It was not enough. A confession does not put a truck back in the driveway. It does not return a welding rig. It does not refill an apartment after someone has emptied it. It was the first true thing Dale had said since Thomas died. "I sold the welding rig," he said. "Got $800 for it. I can give you that." "Keep it," Cora said. Dale looked up. "I don't want it," she said. "And I don't need it from you." For a moment, he looked almost offended. Something else moved across his face. Not forgiveness. Not relief. Recognition. Cora turned and looked at the open gap in front of the porch. "You want to help?" Dale blinked. "I need steps. 3 of them. I've got the lumber. Haven't cut it yet." He stared at the boards near the house. "You know how to use a saw," she said. Dale nodded slowly. "Yeah. I know how to use a saw." Cora did not smile. "This doesn't fix what you did." "I know." And I'm not saying you can come back into my life because you feel bad today. Dale looked down. I know that too. She stepped off the porch and pointed to the lumber stack. Start there. They worked for 3 hours. They did not talk much. That was better. Words had been too cheap between them already. Dale measured and cut the stringers. Cora cut the treads. The rhythm was awkward at first, then less so. Wood has a way of forcing attention. A crooked cut does not care about family history. A level does not flatter anybody. Either the bubble centers or it does not. Dale was good with a saw. That made Cora angry for a moment. Not because he had skill, but because it meant he had always had something useful in him and had spent so many years using other people instead. By late afternoon, the steps were in place. 3 solid treads leading from the ground to the porch Thomas had framed. Dale wiped sawdust from his hands and looked toward the open doorway. He did not climb up. Cora noticed. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was the first decent instinct he had followed in years. Either way, he stayed on the ground until she spoke. This doesn't make us even, she said. Dale nodded. I know. And it doesn't make this your house. I know that too. Only then did Cora step onto the first board he had cut. It held. Dale sat on the bottom step and drank water from a bottle Cora handed him. He looked at the house as if seeing it for the first time without trying to price it. He built all this himself? Most of it, Cora said. 7 years. Dale shook his head. 7 years. Compared to what Thomas had done, the steps were almost nothing. A few boards. A few cuts. A few screws. They mattered because of what they were not. They were not taken. They were built. It's love, Cora said. She had not planned to say it. Once the words came out, she knew they were true. The house was not a project. It was a 7-year act of devotion. Dale left before dark. At the truck, he paused and looked back. You don't have to let me come back, he said. I know. The truck rolled away. That night, Cora wrote in the notebook. June 15th. Dale came back. Built the steps. Not sure what to make of it yet. She added another line. Found Mom's letters. Bristol, Virginia. Not ready. The pencil stopped there. Some truths have to wait their turn. The next week, Glenn found a can of pale blue paint in the back of the hardware store. Customer returned it last year, he said, setting it on the counter. Wrong color. Cora checked the label. It was the kind of blue Thomas had written about in the notebook. The kind she had liked as a child without knowing he had stored the preference somewhere inside him. Did my dad pick this? She asked. Glenn looked away for half a second. He bought a can just like it before he died. Returned it because he said the drywall wasn't ready. When this one came back, I set it aside. Cora carried the paint home like it weighed more than a gallon. That afternoon, she painted the second bedroom. The roller made a soft, steady sound over the drywall. Scout watched from the doorway. With every stroke, the room changed from bare white to the color of a clear sky just after sunrise. Blue walls. Blue tile down the hall. An east window. A shelf at her height. This was how Thomas had loved her. Not in speeches. In measurements. In remembered colors. In small decisions made years before she understood them. Dale came again while the paint was drying. This time he brought cedar boards from a salvage yard near his place. For the railing, he said. Cora waited a moment. All right. Let's build a railing. They worked 2 days. Dale mitered corners cleanly and countersank screws. Cora sanded each post until it was smooth to the touch. They did not discuss forgiveness. They did not discuss the truck. They did not pretend that 3 steps and a railing could erase what he had done. Something had shifted. The first time Dale came after Thomas died, he had removed pieces of a home. Now he was adding to one. When the porch railing was finished, Cora ran her hand along the top rail. Cedar. Solid. The kind of railing a person could lean on and trust. Hazel's railing needs fixing too, she said. Dale looked at her. He nodded. Saturday. The front door was the last major piece. Cora found it at a salvage yard Glenn recommended. Solid core oak, painted over so many times it looked worthless from a distance. $35. The hardware was old and the surface was rough, but the wood underneath was sound. She spent a full Saturday stripping paint with a heat gun and scraper. Layer by layer, the door gave up its previous lives. White. Green. Dark red. Oak grain, tight and straight beneath it all. Glenn came out to help her hang it. He brought hinges and a deadbolt from the returns bin, and the two of them worked until the frames sat right. Shim. Check. Lift. Adjust. Check again. When the door finally swung cleanly and latched, Cora stepped inside and closed it. She turned the deadbolt. The click was small. It changed the house. A lock on a door she owned. A key that belonged in her pocket. A boundary no one had to grant her and no landlord could withdraw with 30 days' notice. Glenn stood on the porch, looking at the finished doorway. That's a house, he said. A real one. Cora looked at the blue siding, the cedar railing, the 3 steps, the east window catching late light. It is. On the last Saturday in June, Cora and Dale fixed Hazel's porch railing. They replaced 4 rotted posts, leveled the top rail, and braced the underside where the old pine had softened with age. Hazel sat in her chair and supervised with the authority of a woman who had earned the right. My Franklin used pine, she said. I told him pine would rot. He said it would be fine. 40 years later, here we are. We're using cedar, Cora said. Smart girl. Afterward, Hazel fed them dinner. Pot roast. Mashed potatoes. Green beans from her garden. Coffee strong enough to hold a spoon upright. Scout lay under the table waiting for anything that fell. It was the first time Cora and Dale had sat at the same table since the funeral. Nobody forced the moment to be more than it was. Dale told a story about a roofing job that went wrong in a thunderstorm. Cora told him about gluing a plumbing fitting backward. Hazel told them about Franklin trying to install a ceiling fan and nearly pulling the light fixture down on top of himself. They laughed once. Not hard. Not long. Enough. Later, while Cora dried dishes beside Hazel, Dale sat outside on the railing he had helped fix. He's trying, Hazel said. I know. You don't have to forgive him. I know that too. Cora set a plate on the stack. But I can leave the door open. Hazel looked at her. That's not the same thing. No, Cora said. It isn't. The next morning, Cora sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. She had passed the post office 3 times without stopping. She had written sentences in her head while sanding, painting, sweeping Glenn's floor, and lying awake with Scout at her feet. Now she put them on paper. Dear Eleanor. My name is Cora. I'm your daughter. She told her about the house. About the 2 acres Thomas bought for $340. About the east window, the blue tile, the porch with 2 chairs facing south. About Scout. About Hazel. About Glenn. About Thomas dying in March at 52. She did not pretend the letters had fixed everything. She wrote that she had grown up believing her mother did not want her, and that was a hard thing to carry. She wrote that she believed Eleanor had left because she loved her, but that leaving had still been the wrong way to show it. She did not say she was ready to visit. She was not. She gave Eleanor the address. Lot 14 Miller Creek Road. Ridley, North Carolina. She sealed the envelope and addressed it to the Care Center in Bristol, Virginia, room 214. She did not know if Eleanor was still there. She did not know if she was alive. At the post office, the metal mailbox door clanged shut. A letter into the unknown. The same way Eleanor had once written to Thomas. July came hot and heavy. Cora painted the outside of the house pale blue, matching the one side Thomas had finished. 6 days on a ladder. Arms aching by evening. Sweat running down her back. Paint under her fingernails. When the last wall was done, she walked to the edge of the clearing and looked back. The house was small. No one driving past would mistake it for wealth. It stood complete. Blue clapboard. Oak front door. Cedar railing. 3 steps. 2 Adirondack chairs on the porch, facing south. A window box waiting for fall planting. A kitchen table Cora built from leftover lumber. A house that looked like someone lived there. Because someone did. Dale came once a month after that. Never for long. Never empty-handed. A shelf for the kitchen. A gate for the path. A hook by the door for Cora's jacket. Small things. Careful things. The kind of apology that does not ask to be named. Hazel came for dinner every Sunday. Sometimes she brought bread. Sometimes pie. Sometimes beans from the garden. She sat at Cora's small kitchen table with her coffee cup in both hands and looked around as if Thomas might still walk in, check the cabinet doors, and find one thing to fix before sitting down. One Sunday in August, Hazel told Cora something Thomas had once said. "He just finished those cabinets," Hazel said. Proud of them, though he tried not to show it. "He told me, some people build cathedrals. I'm just building my girl a place to come home to." Cora looked at the pine cabinets. Every door level. Every handle mounted at the same height. "What did you say?" I told him that was the same thing. The letter from Virginia arrived on a Tuesday in September. Cora found it in the mailbox after walking home from Glenn's store. White envelope. Shaky handwriting. Her name written by a hand that had trouble keeping a straight line. She sat on the porch steps. The steps Dale had built. The steps he had not been allowed to cross the first day. Scout sat beside her. She opened the envelope carefully. "Dear Cora. I read your letter 4 times. The nurses had to bring me tissues twice. I'm still here. Room 214. Still fighting. My hands don't work the way they used to, so this will be short. Your father was the best man I ever knew, and you sound just like him. I would very much like it if you wrote again, whenever you're ready. No rush. I waited 15 years. I can wait a little longer. I love you. I have loved you every day. Mom." Cora folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. She did not get in a car and drive to Virginia that day. She did not have to. Some doors open before anyone walks through them. That was enough for now. She sat on the porch of the house Thomas had started, on the steps Dale had built, beside the dog Thomas had named, holding a letter from the mother she had thought abandoned her. The sun moved through the trees and struck the east wall. The pale blue paint brightened in the morning light. Through the window, she could see the room Thomas had finished first. The shelf at her height. The lamp Hazel gave her. The notebook resting where she could reach it. 23 pages in Thomas's block letters. Cora's handwriting after that. Moved in. Fixed plumbing. Dale came back. Wrote Mom. The notebook had become more than a construction record. It was the story of a house, yes. It was also the story of what happens when a person leaves behind enough love for someone else to continue the work. Cora had arrived in Ridley with $47, a backpack, a Bible, and nowhere to go. By September, she had a house, a job, a dog, a neighbor who had become family, an uncle learning how to show up without taking, and a mother 3 hours away who was still waiting. None of it came the easy way. It came the Thomas Bellamy way. One board at a time. one Saturday at a time. One small act of care hidden inside another. That is why the story matters beyond one family and one house in the Carolina woods. For working people, paperwork is not paperwork. A deed can be shelter. A will can be protection. A permit can be the difference between a home and a structure no one will recognize. A truck, a toolbox, a water heater, a door with a working lock, these are not small things when every dollar has already been spent before it arrives. Thomas did not leave Cora wealth. He left her something more specific: land with her name tied to it, a roof he had framed, and a notebook showing exactly how long love can keep working after words run out. The object Cora kept closest was not the deed, though the deed mattered. It was not the Bible, though the Bible had saved her. It was the notebook. Thomas's first 23 pages, written in all capitals. Costs, measurements, reminders, and small observations about the daughter he had been building toward. Cora's pages after that. Less perfect at first. Then steadier. Together, those pages held two lives working on the same house from opposite sides of death. Thomas never got to hand Cora the key on her 21st birthday. He never got to see her paint the bedroom blue. He never sat in the south-facing porch chair with Scout at his feet. He built the bones strong enough for her to finish. Sometimes that is the most a person can leave. Not a finished answer. Not a life without grief. A place to begin again. Cora leaned back in the porch chair and watched morning light move across the clearing. Scout's breathing was steady against her leg. Somewhere in the trees, a bird called once, then again. The east window caught the sun and held it. She had morning light. She had a home. For the first time in a long time, the silence did not feel like something had been taken. It felt like something was waiting to grow.